Hey everyone.
Hey everybody, glad to be back.
Welcome to Open Class 24. Have a couple of good questions. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing good, really good. Thank you very much.
Very cool.
I brought a little friend. I don't know if you can see right there. This friend is. We can talk about that more later in the broadcast. But it's the real grizzly bear is here today. So we'll talk about that later.
Very good. And yeah, I think firstly, I think just sharing with everyone that a week ago we announced that our self-coaching master program membership program is open, and we now have our first 2 clients. That's exciting.
Yeah, really great. Love that.
Super fun. And so for anyone out there, by the way, last week I said I had this 5 kind of offers for the 5 first members. So there's still three books available for anyone who is among the 5 first.
Awesome. That's great.
So what are you gonna? So you're doing the first drop-in class today?
Yeah, I am.
And are you gonna do like a specific topic in the beginning, or just Q&A, or what are you planning?
I'm just gonna start with Q&A and just kind of see where everybody is, and hopefully both our members will drop in, part of the membership. So definitely take advantage of that, and kind of just see where they are, and go from there, and just kind of let it flow kind of naturally. And I think it's going to be a really helpful thing, because it's definitely just one-on-one. Any question you have, any insights you'd like, you can share them. You can ask me for my insights. I am there for you, for our members, to help kind of keep guiding you along in this along your path. So I'm looking forward to it. So it'll be in just under 2 hours, 12 noon Pacific time. It'll be on Zoom. So if you're a member and you haven't gotten a link, you can go onto Slack, which is how we communicate with our members, and I will create the link and send you the link. So that'll be all at noon today, in a little under 2 hours.
It sounds perfect. And speaking of so we have, as usual, a bunch of questions. And before we go to them, actually, I had this reflection. I want to I want to start these open classes with like a little reflection to give everybody some like little immediate takeaway here. And you know what I thought about? How we always talk about how it's good not to know the time. It's kind of an act of letting go of control, etc. Super helpful. But then oftentimes, one of the reasons for that is that when you check the time and it's like, oh, it's 2:30 a.m., then you automatically start calculating, right? And it's almost always a very stressful, anxiety-provoking experience. But some people say, but guess what? Sometimes I check the time and it is 5:35. It's almost wake-up time, and I feel great. It's kind of this wave of relief. And oftentimes that's what you're looking for when you're checking the time. You're looking to find, oh, yes, I did it. But now here's the thing. You think that wave of relief is a good thing, but it's actually also not a good thing, because what happens is that's time you check the time and it's like, yes, I made it. I slept the entire night. That feels good, that moment, but it reinforces, it creates performance anxiety, because you think that I did it. I finally gave insomnia this blow. And so that's why it's actually, even that is not helpful. So that even better to let go of checking the time completely, right?
And I like to ask people, does it, let's say it's 5:30 and that's like their magic time they're trying to get to, that's like their goal. So I like to just make sure I say, if it's no problem, then checking the time is not a problem. Like if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. That's the bottom line. But I ask, make sure you're honest with yourself. Like, are you always happy when you look at the time? Does the time always make you feel comfortable and happy? Because if it's like, because a lot of times here's what people will say. They'll go, well, sometimes I look at the clock and it's like 2, and I go, yeah. And then what happens? And I go, well, then I get really frustrated. And they start talking about the typical things that people say when they check the time at night, because they check it at 2, then they check it at 2:08 and 2:14 and 2:16. It's like that. That is performance anxiety generating information. You don't need that. It's just complicating everything. So I just encourage people to explore the timeless night. it's really, if once you get used to it, it really, in almost every situation, it helps. So
It
I
helps.
just like the timeless night.
100%. And again, I want to just hit my point home again, which is like, even when you think it's great, you made it to 5:30, that also produces performance anxiety.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
okay, check this out. Kevin is here with a live question. Is it possible for dreams to occur like 5 minutes into sleep? What do you think? Can that happen?
Yeah, they can. Well, okay. What I would like to respond when I hear that kind of statement is, like, you don't really know, maybe it's 5 minutes into sleep. That's the first thing. It's like kind of back into that time discussion we're having. Like, the perception of time is really, really inaccurate at night. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, even if it was like 5 minutes into sleep, you can have like kind of a dreamlike experience sometimes, right when you fall asleep, into that light sleep. It's not always in REM. It's like sometimes in light sleep you can get a bit of a dream experience. It's usually not really big thematic kind of dream. It's more of just like a fleeting thought or something like that. That's normal. That's completely normal. And then the last part I would say is, towards morning, you have a lot of REM pressure, where REM is really trying to push through a lot when you fall asleep. And so that wouldn't be uncommon at all. So I would say the answer is yes, you can. I would say you may not be completely accurate in what you're thinking is happening. But yeah, it's kind of like, it's totally normal in, most situations. If you were saying, oh, I fall asleep like at noon every day and I immediately start dreaming, I wake up and it's 12:03, that's a sign of other things. That's not insomnia. So
I agree. I think it's nothing strange or unusual about that. That can certainly happen. And I guess, double down on, like, maybe you're in transitional, you're thinking mixed in with, maybe it's not classically what we call a dream, but even if it is a dream, nothing strange or unusual there for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Let's hop in and answer some questions. And by the way, I almost forgot. Shout out to Bonnie here, who is a podcast listener, who listens to our podcast. And I often forget to say that we also have a YouTube channel. So for anyone who's listening to podcast, we also have a YouTube channel where you can join us live, because the podcasts come out a little bit later. So just want to share that. And let's read this together. This is a question from Bonnie. I want to learn more about your program, but it seems I can't find out unless I enroll and pay money. I think it would be better for potential clients to be able to access info on the course before they commit. I may not be navigating the site correctly, but it might be worth checking that out. Also sounds like it only trains sleep coaches rather than individuals. Self-coaching is not quite as clear for us sleep-deprived souls. So I just wanted to take the opportunity here, sharing a little bit more about the program, because it is newly launched. And since Bonnie's asking, I was like, yeah, I'll take the opportunity to talk about this. So Bonnie, first of all, thanks for checking it out. And I want to say there is a free class that you can sign up to, so you can see that. And other than that, to be honest, I think this, like being with us live on YouTube and learning our style, is super, that will give you a very good idea of what our teaching is like. But that said, I'm like contemplating maybe creating another video where I talk more about the program itself. What do you think? Maybe that would be helpful, Michael.
Could be helpful. Yeah, like you pointed out, we do have a free module that you can take. You just go to the sleepcoachschool.com, and you can just click right there, and you can get a good intro video about the school and some initial thoughts and ideas that can help you get started. And then, like Coach Daniel said, there's videos almost every day, that are on the channel. And hopefully that can be some initial guidance as well.
Now that's just for those of you who are kind of new to our channel here. It might be it's kind of, you might be curious, why are you calling your home webpage the Sleep Coach School? Well, just for a little throwback here, like the idea actually, when Coach Michael and I started working, was to certify coaches. But then, I realized after a while that, to be able to really, what do you call it? Energize something, inspire somebody to become a sleep coach. You have to kind of show that you can not only help people make the world a better place, but there is kind of a job for you. You can make a living out of this. And there's so many people out there to help. So then we said, okay, why don't we create a program where we actually help people who have trouble sleeping, but the name, the Sleep Coach School, was still there. So that's kind of why it can be a little confusing, which, by the way, led me to think maybe we should change the name of it, Self-Coaching Master Program, to something that immediately tells you what this program is for, which is like to get you to a place where you're immune towards insomnia. So from ouch to immunity, or something like that, maybe.
Yeah. The idea is that if you learn yourself to be a sleep coach, that you can then turn and help others exponentially. So that's kind of our big overall mission, is to help as many people as possible. So, because, we agree that there's a lot of restrictions, traditional Western medicine and kinds of things where it's not disseminated really well. A lot of ideas and thoughts that really can help people. You can become part of the solution. You can become part of this movement to help more people with their sleep. And that was the impetus for the self-coach school, is that you learn not only to improve your sleep, but how to help others sleep. And so, I don't know. The name might be a little misleading.
A little bit at first, I think.
Yeah, we can talk about that, and we can see, maybe come up with a different idea. We'll see. Maybe chat about that.
Cool. Well, that said, let's continue here, and we have one question from William and from two other people as well. I think it's William next here. Yeah, here it is, William. Let's see. To whom it may concern, my name is William Hall, and I have been watching some of your YouTube videos in an effort to understand what is happening to me. In late July, I started having severe trouble sleeping. I went from 6 hours of sleep to 1 or 2 hours, no sleep, virtually overnight. I think it has been this way since, and this past week, I've been completely unable to sleep. The strange thing is I'm not exactly tired per se during the day. I feel wired all the time. Unfortunately, it has completely destroyed many other aspects of my health. I haven't had an MRI, which came back clean, and a home sleep test determined I have sleep apnea, which have been suspected by doctors for years due to sinus issue, but never interfered with sleep. I just want to email you and see what your thoughts may be. Thank you in advance. So here's someone who kind of almost overnight, it sounds like, went from sleeping reasonable amount, no trouble, to like almost not sleeping at all, really worried. What are your immediate thoughts, Coach Michael?
I think that when you start thinking about your sleep, you have a bad night, and then the hyperarousal kicks in, and the hyperarousal is probably what's driving this person during the day, William. During the day, where like you feel like you function okay during the day, because the hyperarousal kind of kicks in. There's always the time monitoring component, 1 to 2 hours. Better not even to really track that at all, in my opinion. The sleep apnea test, you want to take care of that. Breathing is very fundamental. It's like a very basic thing. So if you've been diagnosed with some sleep apnea, you want to pursue treating that in whatever way your doctor is guiding you towards. But when it comes to insomnia, it's the, you were sleeping fine. It was not an issue. You weren't thinking about it at all. It was just like someone asks you about your sleep, you're just kind of like, well, I don't know, I just sleep. And then something happens, and then you start, you have a bad night, and then the thinking kicks in. Then all the, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like my little friend here, the teddy bear becomes a gorilla, right? It just kind of like morphs, it gets big, and then you're like trying things and battling it and all of that. And you have to take a step back, and you have to say, you have to, do the set it and forget it, and go on from there. Understanding that being awake at night is not harmful in any way. It is just something that for some people they struggle with. But if you take that approach where being awake at night is not a big deal at all, find something to do and get interested in something, that can kind of help in the long run. So those are just my initial thoughts, having just seen the email. I would say those would be my comments.
Yeah, I think, it seems really bizarre when you go from sleeping, having no trouble, to suddenly not sleeping at all. But that is just a reflection of how your focus has shifted, like Coach Michael, like when you're not thinking about your sleep well. And it is the hyper focus, if you will, on sleep that is causing you to sleep almost nothing at all. There's nothing unusual about how it happened pretty quickly. Some people identify that there was some real stress that triggered this, and for some people it's like there's nothing going on, which can make it seem even more bizarre. And then again, like Coach Michael said, it's so common. It's so common. Somebody says, I sleep almost nothing, but I don't feel sleepy during the day. This is really, and that makes it seem even more bizarre. You're kind of really in Oz here in Wonderland. Like, what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But it is just a hyperarousal masks fatigue and masks sleepiness.
Yeah, that's so true. I don't mean to cut in, but that's a great point you made. That people during the day, they function okay. They get through the day. They don't take naps. It's rare to hear someone with insomnia say, "Oh, I take a nap every day." And so that is kind of a very confusing situation, because you're convinced you didn't sleep the night before, very, very little. How am I getting through the day? How is this happening? Why can't I even take a nap? And, other things during the day, you do okay, you may not be your best self, but you do fine. And then as evening rolls along, you start focusing on sleep again. And so I completely get it. Then that's a really good point you made about just feeling kind of strange during the day, because you have a lot of energy, you feel like you're doing stuff. And at night you're convinced at night you didn't sleep. So I get the confusion there. Absolutely.
And I'll get to in a second here how you can actually turn that into a positive. But before, I just want to comment on how, short sleep or insomnia has never been shown to cause any health problems, but oftentimes you start having trouble sleeping, and then you kind of start, quote unquote, looking for things. You may have a sleep study, you may have another test, and then you find that, oh, you have this thing going on, and then you attribute it to, like, of course, it all started when I had trouble sleeping, so of course this is causing that, where in reality it's not shown to be causing it. So just know that, because the more you think that your short sleep is causing all kinds of things, the more pressured you are to sleep more, and then the less you sleep.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. It really is a vicious cycle like that.
And then going back to, like, if you feel strangely pretty good during the day, the way you can turn that into like something that works in your favor is to say, well, guess what? Even if I sleep quite little, I do okay during the day. So a lot of people have this insight where they're like, so if I feel okay during the day, why am I trying so hard to sleep more? Why am I struggling to get more sleep when I do okay during the day? And when you do that, when that becomes your thinking, then again, the pressure to sleep decreases, and you can turn that into real positive.
Right. And another point I'd like to make based what you're saying, it's just so just so insightful in this. It's changing your thinking, which is that is the goal. That is the solution. It's changing your thinking, and that can take a while for some people, but it's really it's not another gadget. It's not another, sleep hygiene thing. It is changing in thinking that produces long-term immunity to insomnia.
Yeah, exactly. The immunity. And so, yeah, absolutely, William. And it's like the thing that I don't want to discourage anyone, including you, William, of course, here. But another good point to make is that it can happen suddenly. Suddenly, you go from sleeping okay to sleeping almost nothing. The path back to sleeping well often is a little bit bumpier. It's not like you suddenly have a realization and then you sleep good again. It can be a little bumpy on your way back, William. But just keep learning and engaging with us. You'll get there for sure. Kevin says, thank you. Anytime. Lorenzo is here live with us and says, hi, Daniel and Michael. Ain't sure about the actual harm of this, but when I'm doing almost anything, some songs kicks into my mind. It's like I can't forget it. May this be hyper arousal too? So the question is, so when I'm doing almost anything, some songs, so is it kind of like some things can get stuck in your brain, and is this hyper arousal? I don't know,
but I hear that so often. I don't know if you hear that a lot. I
haven't. Tell me about it.
People will say that they get this song stuck in their head.
Oh, that thing, yeah.
And it just plays on like a loop, sometimes just like a phrase of the song or something like that. It's like, it's not uncommon to hear that. Hopefully it's a song they really like, that's like the first thing I think of. It's like, well, if you like the song, but in all honesty, I don't want to laugh at this situation, but I think, it's common. If it's, could it be hyper arousal? It could indeed. Yeah. I don't see why it couldn't be. And so, you want to, maybe engage in some other things at night, maybe, instead of listening, is watching or reading, to kind of like almost like put more like visual material in your mind. Then when you go to bed, you can kind of do the imagery thing, which I'm a big proponent of that. So that, that's just some general comments about that. I don't know. I just hear it a lot. I just know that I hear the song loop thing, in the mind. It's a common one. So
very interesting. I'm learning something today. That's really, really cool. And when I heard you talk about this more, Michael, I understand it. And now my thinking becomes, oh, it's almost like an undesired thought. It's like when somebody's like, I'm thinking this thing and I want to think this. And then, you want to stop the racing thoughts. And then my thinking becomes, okay, let's say you have a song stuck in your brain and you go, oh no, I don't want to hear this song. What can I do to stop this song? Well, guess what? Then it becomes more sticky because, it's kind of like the warning from the brain. The more you don't want to hear it, the more the brain shouts it. So I think the key probably is to be like, oh, here's this song. I'm going to enjoy this song. I don't mind having this song. Then it becomes less sticky. So if you don't want to hear the song, paradoxically, be okay with hearing it. Then the brain isn't going to force it as much,
Yeah. You can't turn your brain off. It's like people, you work with the client, his first thing is, where's the off switch to my brain? And I say, it doesn't exist. Or I get really snarky and I say, it's right behind your right ear. If you just, it doesn't exist. So you have to kind of, use other parts of your mind, because you will always be thinking about something. You lay down in bed, it's dark, eyes closed, drifting off, you get comfortable. You're thinking about something. Go somewhere nice, go to that great vacation you had, the walk on the beach, whatever it is, and really kind of get lost in that. That, I think, is one of the best ways to reduce the break in the gas break model.
And like I recently said this, like the reason your brain doesn't shut off is because you're looking for the switch, looking for the switch. That will keep you going for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You have some good comments here. George says, change your thinking, stop the grizzly fear.
Yeah. There you go. Teddy bear.
Make it a teddy bear.
Here, I'll show you close up. Teddy bear. There. This is really what the grizzly bear is. And when you get to that point, you'll realize that. And yes, you may have some battle scars, definitely, with your battle with the grizzly bear, but it really is the little guy here.
And then Lewis has some insightful tips here. Just have a couple of beers. Here's the thing with that is, like, I'm laughing because I think it's a fun comment, but I think it brings up a really important teaching point, which is, if you have a couple of beers at night and you enjoy that and you sleep good, that's perfect. But if you actually drink beer with the intent of making yourself sleep, no, that is a slippery slope, and you can easily see that for sure.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people perhaps consume alcohol in the evening to reduce pain levels. That's a common, I think, self-medication technique, but like you said, it's a slippery slope. There's kind of dependency kicks in, and then you metabolize it, and all this kind of bad stuff happens.
All right, let's go back here to our questions for today. We have, I think, 2 more. We have Pamela here wrote a comment. Actually, just came in a few hours ago. Since April 2020, I suffered from sleep problems. I always slept well till April. Everything changed when one night I felt energetic and I thought myself, I don't want to sleep. But in the end, I just slept. 2 days after I visited my brother and his girlfriend, I always worried about Corona, but I went there in the end. That night, I could not sleep. I did not sleep for 2 days. First time ever this happened to me. Starting then, it took about 1 to 2 hours to fall asleep. Sometimes I did not manage to sleep until 2, 3 a.m. It's been okay for a few weeks, but now since 3 days, I managed to sleep after some time and wake up every 2 hours. After waking 2 times, it's like 1 a.m. and then it takes me 2 hours to fall asleep. I wake up by 5. I had blood tests done and a CAT scan, and all is fine. The doctor says it's my psych. I'm depressed at times, but no idea if this has something to do with it. A few days before all started, I had to stay awake in the hospital all night due to testing. Maybe this also triggered it. Sleep times sometimes exhausts me and gives me anxiety. So yeah, I guess I suffer from insomnia. I wonder if I'll ever be normal again. This is such a common question, or thought that, can I ever sleep like a normal person again, And of course you can, Pamela, of course you can, everybody can. But if I start commenting on this one, I want to say, reading this, you can see that Pamela is pretty much in what I call Oz, this like bewildered state, puzzled state, where nothing makes sense. And you can hear in this comment how Pamela's brain is trying to connect the dots, trying to figure out how it all happened, right? And from the outside perspective, to me, the story is there was that time where you had kind of this energy, but you slept. That's when, for some reason, sleep became like a thing on your radar, your kind of safety thing in your brain, safety mechanism in your brain that we all have. Our safety system started seeing like, oh, sleep is something that can be a problem, right? Then it went away. Then you had this stress with Corona, and then you didn't sleep. And now the brain went like, okay, this is an issue. Sometimes you can't sleep. Being awake at night is a threat, a problem. You got to do something about it. And since then, you have been in the state of like kind of trying to get into the battle, like, trying to get rid of wakefulness at night. And the more you try to defeat the grizzly bear, the more entrenched this all becomes, So there's nothing strange or unusual here. In fact, some things that are going in your favor here, Pamela, is that it hasn't been that long, The ideas in your mind aren't that entrenched, I can tell that you're not someone who has had this for years, and so it'll be, it's tough, but I think that works in your favor. And now, before I let Coach Michael comment on it here, I think if, I've started doing this thing when I see comments or emails or questions is go through them and see how many times is there a reference to a clock time. And I didn't count this time, but I think there were at least like 8 or 9 times. And that goes to show like the more you focus, try to control it, manage it, etc., the more trouble you're going to have. So I think a couple of things that I think will really help you is just get up the same time every morning. Give yourself maybe 7 or 8 hours for sleep, but not more. So let's say you get up at 6, then stop checking the time at like 10 or 11, and then learn more on this channel. I think those are like the path forward to sleeping normal again.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially with the tracking the time at night, it's, it just creates performance anxiety, and anxiety is kind of like the biggest part of the break. I was going to comment about, anytime if you have an exceptional stressful thing happen during the day, it's normal to have that on your mind for more than just the day. It doesn't just magically disappear at night. A big stress during the day, bad news about something, anything that just causes stress. It's not logical to think that it's going to just dissipate as the sun goes down. In fact, there's, now it's like you have more time to think about it. It's like the night happens and now it's quiet and dark and you're alone with your thoughts. And it's like, now it's like kind of a breeding ground. So it's almost just the opposite. So I encourage people to kind of just, go easy on yourself. Treat yourself with kindness. In other words, don't try to force sleep. You might just end up like doing some nice reading and sipping on some tea or something and not worrying about the time. And who cares if you ever go to bed that night? Kind of just take that attitude of, I had this stressful thing happen today. It's a lot to process. I'm going to process it more during the day tomorrow, but tonight I'm just going to take a completely passive attitude. And like what you said, you don't have a bedtime, have a wind down time, like you start kind of easing into your night, but having no expectations of sleep, no knowledge of the time, and you just kind of see what happens. But understand that a stressful thing during the day, it's still you, it doesn't like just magically disappear at night. So I guess that's kind of the idea that I would encourage you to adopt.
Sounds good. I hope that really, really helped, Pamela. Hang in there. And again, you can definitely sleep just like you did before, 100%.
Yep.
Lewis said, on a serious note, exercising regularly helps me sleep much easier. No, I think that is very important. And I want to say that, for anyone out there who really struggles with sleep and goes like, oh, that's it, I'm going to exercise more. If you think that, don't do it. But because it can become an effort. Oftentimes I hear somebody's like, I'm exhausting myself and I still can't sleep. Well, it's because you're exhausting yourself so you can sleep more. You're putting more attention, more pressure towards sleep. But if you like exercising, if that brings you joy and takes your attention in a different direction, it's one of the most wonderful things to do.
Yep, 100%.
Actually, rock climbing is what Lewis does, yeah.
Great.
Lorenzo says he agrees. Before the pandemic, I used to swim and I slept like a stone. You know, it was the swimming helps, but again, before the pandemic, you were busy. It was not just the swimming; it was like your attention was elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, let's move on here. Our last email question, or this is actually also a comment I want to stay on. Hannah wrote the following: just following your videos, and I've been watching many. I've been struggling with sleep for about a month. I'm 20 weeks pregnant. I started an antidepressant one night, and then that night I had jerks while falling asleep, either due to the medication or fear of starting a new medication. Ever since, it's been hell. I went 4 days with zero sleep. Then I started sleeping anywhere from 1 to 5 hours. I've been worried about SFI and all the worries that go along with insomnia. Now, these have been my consistent issues. I'll fall asleep and wake up an hour or two later in a half sleep, half awake state where I'm normally dreaming half awake about something I watched on TV earlier. This goes on as I toss and turn until I get out of bed and tell myself this is not reality in a dream. And sometimes I get back in bed as soon as I close my eyes. I'm thrown into another dream and may or may not be awake and half asleep, toss and turn until I'm awakened for good and stay up the remainder of the day. The past 2 nights I've fallen asleep and woke up in a half awake state 2 hours later. Then I awake at 9 a.m. where I finally fall back asleep for 3 to 5, but periodically wake up and go back to sleep. My sleep is always coming very, very vivid dreams every time. I don't feel like I've slept. My husband said I did sleep, so my perception is off. I don't know how to approach my situation because I'm pregnant. It's a little different from the normal person. They say not to care about it, but how can I do that? I'm just at a loss of how not care. There seems to be a lot of coaches to overcome insomnia. Sorry, I'm just going to read this last thing. I'm just at a loss of how I don't care, consider my situation, since there seems to be a lot of coaches say to overcome insomnia, to get over this, how to deal with insomnia. Like a pregnant person, I have double worries because of the baby and everything. And you really need some advice. So I think here we have like a couple of things. Okay, so firstly, we have the big one, which is like, sorry, I forgot the name already. Was this Hannah?
I think so.
Right, let me just check. Yeah, this is Hannah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Hannah is pregnant. Hannah started having all these twitches after starting a medication. Hannah's worried about the baby, and Hannah's wondering, like, how can you like not care? So those kind of some big ones, but and a lot to talk about there. But what are some first things that come to your mind, Michael?
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, clearly, being pregnant gives you a lot on your mind all the time. And so it's completely understandable why you'd be wanting to monitor things, about yourself, every little thing, because you have a baby, and, it's completely understandably so. You'd be tracking things and monitoring things and wanting to make sure you're completely healthy. Well, that hyper focus on health, on your own health, is kind of one of the big predispositions for insomnia. It's some, people who aren't pregnant, but are really, really hyper focused on their health, tracking every parameter, every heart rate, every just everything they can track. That in and of itself can kind of lead to trouble sleeping. So, that I just want to kind of point that out, that it's understandable that you would be really focused on your health and your situations. I don't know about pregnancy and like the hypnic jerks situation, if there's a correlation there. I'm not really sure. Coach Daniel can probably speak about that. But I just think that understanding that, being pregnant doesn't affect sleep per se, like not directly, like your sleep drive is still there. There might be some other kind of like, brakes, in the gas brake model, that the brake side can really get strong with your situation. So that's just kind of the initial impression I got.
Absolutely. And, when I hear that, when I read this comment on the YouTube channel that, I heard you were pregnant, my thinking became similar, that, there's no question that is a unique situation. But that said, it's very common to say, yes, I understand for other people, it's easier to let go. But for me, I have a newborn. It's not as easy. Or for me, I work shift work. Or for me, I have 5 kids to take care of. Or for me, it's this, or I have this illness, I have Parkinson's, whatever it is. So it is what I want to say is that there are always circumstances that make things more difficult, but that doesn't mean you have to have insomnia. In other words, there are a lot of things, a million things that can disrupt your sleep, including pregnancy. Pregnancy, it's uncomfortable, you're nauseous, you have hormones up and down. That will disrupt your sleep. Yeah, it will make it harder for you to sleep well. True. But when somebody is like, it takes me hours to fall asleep, I sleep minimal, that is insomnia. That is only driven by your thoughts. That is driven by fear. That is driven by fear of being awake. So what I want to say is that there's no question in my mind that if you do some education and you understand this, then you can get to a point where you don't sleep great because you're pregnant, but you have no insomnia. You're not struggling at all. So that's kind of my big pregnancy thing.
Yeah. You talked about circumstances. I call them challenges. That's just the term I came up with over the decades, and everyone has them. It's so rare to work with someone who's struggling with their sleep and you can't find anything that maybe affects their sleep. Anything from like they get stressed out easily. That could be something. They could have a chronic pain condition. They could have Parkinson's. They could anything. It's like I can't even think of someone I've ever worked with who didn't have a challenge of some sort. Life, caregiving things. Anything that just disrupts your sleep. We all have them. Every single person has something. Some people, many things that I just call challenges. And, you do the best you can with those. But when it comes to insomnia, it's a whole separate thing. It's just a way of that you're thinking about your sleep that's really driving the insomnia. So, learn about sleep. The biggest way to take the mystery out of something, learn about it. And that's the big part of our school, learn about sleep, learn about insomnia.
100%. And to go over some of the other things in this message was the hypnic jerks, which I think didn't seem like they were an ongoing problem. So we may not spend so much time there, but when we're about to fall asleep, we often have a jerk that is completely normal. Everybody has those. But when you start paying attention and you try to avoid them and you're wondering about them, they become much, much more bothersome. And so I think the same thing there. When you learn that they are not harmful or anything, they go away by themselves. And then I think one thing where I said like, okay, one of those we like to talk about low hanging fruit. Like, okay, here's something you can do that will probably help a lot. That is pretty obvious. It was like when Hannah said, then I awake finally at 9 a.m. and then I sleep a little bit. Sounds like Hannah is maybe in bed until like noon or something like that. I'm guessing because like so many people trouble sleeping, Hannah, you may be going to bed like at 10 and then you fall asleep at 2 and then you're up until 4 and then finally sleep at 9 or something like that. And then it's like you're doing what we call like casting a wide net. You're trying to see how much sleep you can get by giving yourself a lot of time opportunity for sleep, which seems like a good strategy, but it always backfires because the more you try, the less you get. And the sleep you do get is very fragmented and superficial and low quality. And by the way, that gives you that, which we forget to talk about, those the dream experience, the vivid dreams that comes from superficial sleep and from all the anxiety, of course. So when you say, okay, guess what? Even though I have all this trouble sleeping, I'm going to get up at 7 a.m. and I'm not going to allow myself to sleep before 10 p.m. or something like that. I'm going to stop checking the time at 10 p.m. and then I'm not going to check that. Then you'll have better quality sleep and things will get better. So I felt that was a really good thing you could work on there.
Definitely.
Cool. So Lorenzo, I think we covered everything live. Yep, we did. So with that said, then I want to say everyone out there who is finding a lot of value here, we like our teaching, but you say, you know what, I think I would like to work even more with Coach Daniel and Coach Michael. We'll head over to our self-coaching program from Ouch to Immunity.
Ouch to Immunity.
The sleepcoachschool.com.
Yeah, check out the free class. And members, I'll be on in just over an hour on Zoom. You'll get a link if you're a member, and doing our first drop-in class. So super excited to do that. And it's coming up soon.
Super fun. Okay, everyone, have a nice weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Great questions. See you guys on Monday.